Hey folks, Flopku here, and just like you, I am a big fan of Attack on Titan and I'm a big fan of anime games. However, we just don't have enough quality Attack on Titan games out there. The lack of games is so strong that most Attack on Titan fans prefer the fan-made games over the official ones by Koei Tecmo, Atlas, etc. I mean, the very fact that these fan-made games are so popular just means that there's not enough out there, and these companies could be taking way better advantage of owning the Attack on Titan IP. So I thought I'd take a look at some of the games that I've played in the past over the course of my life and see what I can do for Attack on Titan fans. So here are 10 games for Attack on Titan fans. Just like you, just like me. So before we begin, fans of Attack on Titan are looking for different things in an Attack on Titan game. Some are looking for freedom of movement with the 3D maneuver gear. Others are into slaying giant enemies, and others are into the drama and the plot twists. No games on this list are going to be a one-to-one representation of Attack on Titan, but they might help you scratch one of those different itches. So at number 10 we have Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation 2. If you have a PlayStation 2, this Spider-Man game is arguably the best one ever made, and it's all because of the amazing web slinging system that they have in place. Some people will enjoy this system a lot because it's very physics-based, just like many players prefer the Attack on Titan fan-made games because their 3D movement is also very physics-based. There's something about it that appeals to your raw skill. It raises the skill ceiling so high that the only limit is your own ability to take advantage of the systems in place. So for those players, Spider-Man 2 is perfect. Not many games convey this sense of freedom as well as this game does. The web slinging mechanic is complex and it may take a while to get used to, but in that regard, it's just the same as most Attack on Titan fan games. If on the other hand you're a player who doesn't really like this type of complex movement, doesn't really want to put in the time to learn something as difficult as this, then perhaps it's best that you look at another entry on our list. How about number 9, Sunset Overdrive for Xbox One. Its movement is a lot more streamlined, but at the same time it doesn't resemble Attack on Titan as much as Spider-Man. So sacrificing something that looks like the 3D maneuver gear, which is Spider-Man's web slinging, in favor of something easier to get into is a choice that only you can make. However, Sunset Overdrive can also scratch some of the other Attack on Titan itches, as some of the boss fights in this game are pretty huge, and slaying giant monsters, I think it's part of the fun of Attack on Titan. At the same time, you're mostly doing it with guns, while Attack on Titan mostly uses blades. The overall tone of the game is very different too, as it's a comedic zombie apocalypse instead of a dramatic one with giants. But still, there's something there, and we had to include something for the Xbox One gamers. On the PlayStation 4 side of things, we have something similar and yet a lot more appropriate in terms of tone. Number 8, Infamous Second Son. Just like Sunset Overdrive, it is an open world game with fun casual traversal, but the tone of it is a lot more dramatic than Sunset Overdrive, bringing it a lot closer to Attack on Titan on that side of things. On the other hand, it's a game where the protagonist has superpowers, so he can glide in the air and turn into smoke, and Attack on Titan isn't really a superhero series, so in a way that makes it a bit more different. The same goes for boss fights because you don't really have huge monsters to defeat. Still, it's a very good game at world building, the divide between normal humans and mutants, and you find yourself also divided in this conflict. And in that regard, it's very, very similar to Attack on Titan. Alright, we've gone long enough without a game that's all about defeating giant enemies. So how about number 7, Shadow of the Colossus? There's a remake coming to PlayStation 4, so if you don't have a PlayStation 2 where the game originally came out, just wait for the remake if you haven't played it yet. Shadow of Colossus is all about slaying giant colossal enemies, way bigger than most Titans, and you do so with a sword. You don't have 3D maneuver gear, but if you found a Titan in most of these environments, the 3D maneuver gear wouldn't be very useful, since there's not a lot to grapple onto except the monster itself. But instead of the 3D gear, you still have a horse, like the Scout Regiment, when they go out exploring on missions beyond the wall. And you know what else? These monsters can't be killed unless you hit them in a specific place in their body, their weak spot, just like the Titans have the napes. The only thing lacking in this game for fans of the anime is really the freedom of movement and also the lack of action. The way you climb the colossi is a bit slower than you might want to. It's a big climb to the top, to the monster's weak spot, and it's not the fast-paced hack and slash action that we see in the anime. So hey, allow me to give you guys some faster hack and slash action. Number 6, DMC Devil May Cry. Now this is the first game on our list that doesn't really emphasize movement throughout an open world. So if the main draw for Attack on Titan for you is the 3D maneuver gear, then perhaps this one isn't for you. If on the other hand, the main hook is slaying a bunch of monsters big and small in a very stylish way, then yes, pick up DMC. Even the tone is kind of similar with the exception of the protagonist Dante. The whole story is quite dramatic and some really messed up things are happening around the world, not to mention the really messed up boss fights. But Dante, he's kind of a joker. He's a guy that likes to have fun and make fun of every situation, and that lightens up the mood in a way that doesn't happen in Attack on Titan. But hey, if you're a fan of hack and slash games in general, DMC is gonna be a solid game to pick up. And then on top of that, if you're itching for some new Attack on Titan, then it's definitely a recommendation of mine. And you know what else has huge boss fights? Number 5, the God of War games. Yet another hack and slash series with a very different theme and vibe from DMC. The protagonist is less of a funny guy and more of an angry dude. Yeah, angry dude. I think that's pretty much the right way to describe Kratos. Kratos fights gods, literally, so there are obviously a lot of huge boss fights and using blades nonetheless. Again, this is a game with very little emphasis on traversal, so fans of the 3D maneuver gear maybe don't come to this one, but fans of slaying giant enemies, step right up. But let's get back to some of the open world goodness at number 4, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Once again, no grappling hook or 3D maneuver gear, but you do have a horse. So pretend like you're a single scout exploring outside the city. Breath of the Wild is a fantastic game on its own, one of my favorite games of all time, and I think there's a lot here for Attack on Titan fans. You have unexpected encounters everywhere you go, like sometimes in the anime, Titans just surprise the scouts. Some of those encounters may or may not be with giant monsters. Also, your weapons break all the time, so you constantly need to be aware of your surroundings and you need to be switching weapons just like the blades in Attack on Titan. And the sense of discovery in that game is just fantastic. We don't really know much about what's out there in Attack on Titan. Most of the anime takes place within city walls, and whenever you get out, you're just in a forest with nothing interesting to look at. So what if beyond that forest awaits a world like this? I don't know, I like to fantasize. Look, just play Zelda. You don't need an excuse to do that. Number 3, however, it might need a bit more convincing though. The game is called Titan Souls, and I know pixel art isn't for everyone, but I really love this game. You're a little kid with a bow and a single arrow. After you shoot the arrow, you gotta retrieve it or you gotta summon it back, and you set out to slay titans. These titans are all very, very different, but they all die with a single hit. The problem is, you must hit them in their weak spot. Now, does that sound familiar or what? I loved figuring out all the mechanics, I loved all the boss fights, and there's some replayability here as well, because after you finish the game, there's some stuff that might make you want to replay it, and I thought it was incredibly worth it. And as you can see, the similarities to Attack on Titan are not limited to just both games having the word Titan on the title. There's a lot more there. Moving on to our number 2, Earth Defense Force. A bunch of tiny little humans defending Earth against giant monsters. Sure, the monsters aren't necessarily humanoids but giant bugs, but still, you can see the similarities. Depending on the class you choose, you might have a grappling hook or you might simply fly. But really, the main thing that makes this different from Attack on Titan is definitely the tone. While Attack on Titan takes itself very seriously, EDF is just silly. Silly good old fun. And finally, our number 1, Lost Planet 2. Lost Planet 2 is probably as close as we can get to Attack on Titan. Giant boss fights, they don't have a single weak point, but they usually have many. They still take a lot of bullets to go down, but they do have weak points, and you have a grappling hook to move around. You do use guns for the most part, it's not blades. But here you have a very underrated game that might be worth checking out. Maybe it's not as fast as you'd like it to be. If you look at the gameplay, some of the animations are very slow and deliberate, but they do have interesting and unique mechanics for each boss fight. The camera may have some problems too, but again, I feel like every Attack on Titan game does as well, so even the flaws are the same. And those were 10 games for Attack on Titan fans. As you could probably tell, no single game is a full replacement for a full-on Attack on Titan game, so hurry the hell up, Omega Force! But hopefully some of these games on the list will help you scratch that Attack on Titan itch, and if you have any recommendations for me, I would love to check them out. Let me know in the comments down below. For a breakdown of everything we know so far about Attack on Titan 2, check out this video right here. If you're in the mood for something else, there's also this video right here. But as always, thank you very much for watching. My name is Globku, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!